Hi, I'm Daniel Pinto, and this is Dangers of the Wild, sponsored by PBS. Today, we'll be talking about hypothermia and its effects on the body. Today we'll be talking about the physiology of hypothermia, as well as statistics and what to do if you're ever caught in this situation. And to help me with all this, we have special guest Dr. Jafari.
Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, doctor. Thanks for being here.
No problem, my pleasure.
So what is hypothermia?
Well, I just want to make it clear at the beginning that I want to state the difference between hypothermia and hyperthermia. Hypothermia is characterized by a drop in core body temperature, while hyperthermia is a raise in core body temperature. A lot of people, they confuse the two terms, but that little E and O make a huge difference. So it all begins with the nervous system. You have tiny little receptors in your skin and all over your body sensing temperature changes in your environment around you. So these senses are called the peripheral nervous system. They send signals to the center and the brain called the central nervous system. So when the temperature outside changes, these signals pick up, send a signal to the brain, and the brain then acts accordingly. When the brain senses that there is a drop in temperature, it sends a signal out to the blood supply in and around the body, and especially in the extremities and the limbs. It cuts the blood supply from those organs and allows more warmth and rich blood to come and circulate more in the core area. At the same time, another signal is sent to the skeletal muscles in and around the body and cause them to contract and relax rapidly. This is also known as shivering, that some people are very familiar of. It's like when people are shivering. This allows the body to expend ATP, which is the body's energy currency. When ATP is spent, it's spent as movement, but at the same time, majority of it is spent as heat. That heat will help raise the core temperature, and hopefully it'll prevent your body from shutting down and ultimately dying. The body is very, very nifty, I must say, when it comes to survival.
I didn't think it was so technical.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, but we take our bodies for granted, and that's why I love my work.
In the last 10 years, approximately 1,700 people have passed away from hypothermia in the United States. In Canada, that number is much, much lower. In the majority of these cases, it is classified as urban hypothermia, and is mainly due to the intoxication of drugs and alcohol. Urban hypothermia is classified usually by a city of over 1 million people. So if you're just wondering, it's usually America's homeless.
So I'm going to explain to you the symptoms of hypothermia. Hypothermia is usually classified into 3 categories of severity. The first is initial to mild severity. So the symptoms with mild hypothermia is grogginess, sluggishness, and shivering. However, there is normal breathing and heart rate. I don't want to confuse this with just feeling cold and shivering in general. Hypothermia, remember, is characterized by a drop in body temperature by 2 degrees, so from 37 degrees to 35 degrees Celsius. Moderate hypothermia includes violent shivering, or when shivering completely stops, inability to pay attention, slow, shallow breathing, and a slow or weak pulse. Signs of severe hypothermia include when shivering has actually completely stopped, unconsciousness, little to no breathing, and a slow and weak pulse. Frostbite is also associated with hypothermia due to the body's mechanism to draw blood away from its extremities, essentially leaving them vulnerable.
Before talking about aid, we're going to talk about prevention. And prevention just comes down to common sense. Dress in layers, be prepared, as well as assess your group dynamic. Don't take risks that you don't have to take, because after all, risk is the real danger of the wild. today's example, we have Ricky, who we pulled out of Lake Ontario after 10 minutes. He's suffering from mild hypothermia. To show you exactly what you do if you're ever in this situation, Dr. Jafari will walk us through it. Doctor?
So the first step to treating a person who is suffering from hypothermia is to reduce heat loss. So the first step is to remove all wet clothing. Ricky in this situation has fallen into Lake Ontario after swimming on a normal day during his camping trip. Wet clothing actually strips heat away from the body 25 times faster than does dry clothing. So Ricky, can you please remove all your wet clothes so you don't suffer any more heat loss? Another important step is to get the victim away from wind and the cold. The wind will protect him with the sleeping pad, but another way to help reduce heat loss is to put a nice thick sleeping pad underneath the patient so he doesn't lose heat through the earth. Can you please get under this? A good drink to give a patient is hot chocolate. Hot chocolate has diluted sugars and it's warm. This will help the body rapidly intake the energy, as well it'll help heat up the core temperature. The third step for treating hypothermia is to add heat. The best ways to add heat is to wrap the patient in well-insulated materials. Another example Daniel has here is a thermal blanket. Essentially, it's a large tin foil which will help reflect radial energy back to the patient. Having one of these in the safety kit is always important to have. You never know when someone will be in the drink. So, the best way is to wrap the victim in a layer of thermal blanket, and then to wrap the sleeping bag around them like a burrito. It's important to add another warm body into the sleeping bag so that heat circulates and hopefully will transfer to the victim.
Some of the common mistakes that people often make when treating for hypothermia include not rubbing the correct areas of the body. When you do not have a thermal blanket and you haven't been prepared, so oftentimes you'll see people sitting down and rubbing their arms and legs because they're the coldest. But in reality, you want to be rubbing your chest and vital organs to keep them and your core temperature up.
It's a very good point that you suggested that, Daniel. So the key areas to keep warm are the groin, the armpits, the neck or the lymph node area, and obviously in the core.
If you're wondering why it's important for outdoor education, let me give you a real life example. In 1971, two women were separated from their group in Oregon while traveling along the Three Sister Mountains. Unfortunately, they had to battle the elements and they didn't make it. That's why it's important to go out and educate people on what to do when you're braving the elements. As I said, risk is the real danger of the wild. It's very important to be knowledgeable and plan ahead. Preparing a first aid kit or the proper supplies can and will save your life. Teaching children at a young age is not only crucial, but life-saving, as they're not really aware of the effects that the cold will have on them in the long run. Braving the elements is no small feat, even for an adult, and teaching children through experiences outdoor is essential to survival. For the younger viewers at home, the important take-home message is be prepared and respect the outdoors. So in today's Dangers of the Wild, we covered hypothermia, how it affects your body, what to do to prevent it, what to do if it happens to you, and some real-life statistics and examples. Overall, know that hypothermia is usually solved by a little bit of common sense. Join us next week as we cover the dangerous and wild world of lightning. Thank you for our special guest, Dr. Jafari, and thank you, PBS, for the sponsorship. I'm Daniel Pinto, and this is Dangers of the Wild. Thanks for watching.